Hey there, business owner. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Evolution Podcast. This is our weekly episode, and I'm so happy you are here. Let's get started. Hey there, entrepreneur. It's Annette Walter. I'm your host of the Entrepreneur Evolution Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode. This is actually the first entrepreneur interview that we have of the year. We started off the year last week talking about our Entrepreneur Express tip and our one-word theme for the year. And I loved hearing all of your feedback about your one words, your motivation, your momentum, your assertiveness, your courage, your confidence, all of the fantastic words that you have going on. And today, I'm really happy that you're here to show up and keep evolving. And you're going to learn so much from today's guest. Today, we are joined by Dino Signore. He is the founder of the Signore Group and also an education manager at the Edward Lowe Foundation. Dino creates and facilitates business retreats for second stage entrepreneurs. And in his private practice, he serves as a facilitation coach for multiple EOS implementors. He is so knowledgeable. He works with entrepreneurs across the globe. And if you need direction, if you need support, if you want to learn something, if you want to know something, trust me, he knows it. His website is www.signoregroup.com, S-I-G-N-O-R-E group.com. And just take a listen. You're going to love this episode. And make sure that you are taking time to carve out personal development and leadership development for yourself and for your team. And this is a question that I get all of the time. Annette, where do I get help and support? What do I do? How do I do this? And what is the right resource for me to invest in? Okay. And what happens a lot of times is that entrepreneurs end up spending a lot of times on vendors and resources that really promise them a magic wand, and it's not what they need at all. So if you carve out some time with me, send me an email, yourock@ievolveconsulting.com. What I do is basically in a breakthrough call is I will listen to you. I will hear what your challenge is, and I'll make a suggestion. I'll point you in the right direction, okay? I will tell you, this is what you need, go this way, or this is what you need, go this way, or, whatever it is. So I study this stuff. I've taken a lot of these programs. I've coached a lot of coaches and facilitators, and I live it, breathe it, and I see it. So use me. I'm here for you. That's what I'm here for. I am really proud of you, entrepreneur. Thank you for all the reviews. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating and hit subscribe so that you are notified to every episode that drops. We drop an interview with another entrepreneur like yourself every Tuesday and an Entrepreneur Express tip every Friday. This is the place that you can evolve and feel surrounded. Keep going. I am so proud of you, entrepreneur. Hi, Dino. How are you?
I'm good, Annette. How are you?
I am so well. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
I'm excited.
I'm excited for you to be here. We are joined today by Dino Signore, and he is an entrepreneur education manager, facilitator at the Edward Lowe Foundation, which we're going to hear more about, and also the president of the Signore Group Consulting. And you, my friend, are a wealth of knowledge in the entrepreneur space. And I know that today, what you share is going to be so beneficial for our audience, and they just are going to love every ounce of what we talk through. In fact, I don't even know where to start. Where do we start? Let's start with your backdrop. Give us the quick Cliff's version of you, and kind of catch us up to speed on Dino, the quick backdrop. How about that?
Oh, okay. All right. I think the short story would be that when I got out of school, my first experience in my professional career really was working with an entrepreneur. I was hired into a small firm, and we grew that small company from about, I think it was almost at $1 million a year revenue up to about $15 million in revenue. So I got to work with an entrepreneur, and little did I know that was going to really shape the way I looked at my career the rest of the way. I was in the home entertainment industry, so I worked in the music business for 10 years or so, and then I went to work for a large corporation. I did that for about 10 years, and then started thinking about going for a master's degree. So I went for the master's degree program. Thought I wanted to be a city manager, but that didn't work out. But it did get me involved in thinking about, economic development. That led me to teaching at a university, which then led me to working at getting my position at the Edward Lowe Foundation. That was almost 20 years ago now, where I knew they were looking for somebody who did program business development and program development, and then I tend to fit that spot. So, and then being exposed to the second stage entrepreneurs is really what I got the biggest experience around. And so that's been 20 years of working as their manager of entrepreneurial education. And so I get to facilitate all the retreats at the property that we have, 30 or 40 each year. I see probably 300 business owners on average a year. And then started in 2010, began to pursue a PhD in business psychology. So I think obviously a business person would, almost at an MBA business level kind of thing, but I think like a psychologist. And that helped me as a facilitator at the foundation. It has then also began to start my own private practice in addition, mainly because the foundation is a nonprofit operating foundation that the IRS does not allow us to do direct consulting. But I would be asked every once in a while, could you come in and do some work directly with an individual? And the foundation allowed me to do that. So because they couldn't. And so then that began the practice a little bit before 2010, before I got the degree finished. But it's been something that I have found really fascinating. So I mostly work with entrepreneurs, mostly working with those growth-oriented entrepreneurs, how they grow their companies, what are challenges they're facing personally, professionally, with their teams, with strategy, with just some performance coaching and all kinds of different things, whatever comes up that's mostly people related, and social psychology related. I tend to kind of fit into those categories, but a lot of facilitation work too. So.
Absolutely. And the Edward Lowe is such a special place. I spent some time with you out there, I'd say probably about 4 years ago. Give or take a year, I don't know. I'm losing track here.
All blurs.
Right, and it's a magical place. It really is. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell the audience a little bit about it and the purpose and the drop story behind that.
Sure. Edward Lowe was the inventor of kitty litter, and he lived and he worked in a piece of property that he owned that he called Big Rock Valley, located in Southwest Michigan. He ended up owning about 2,500 acres of land in Southwest Michigan. So it's where he lived and where he worked and where his offices were there for the kitty litter business, the litter business we call it. He also had Tidy Cat. It was 2 companies he had. So a very successful business owner with those 2 companies. When he got older, he started thinking about what was going to be his legacy. What was the significance of his life. And he loved being an entrepreneur. He really wanted other people to have that same opportunity that he did. So he created a foundation. This was about he sold the business first. It was at 86, 87, that time frame. Started the foundation. And then he was still doing the work with it. He was championing, like all entrepreneurs were the idea. Anybody who said they were an entrepreneur, he really wanted to help. He wanted a place for people to come, to learn from each other, to learn about the challenges that you'd have as an entrepreneur. Now, he passed away in 1995, and then the foundation went through a couple of different things that they had to go through. But then about the year 2000, that's when we kind of officially got our gift from him. And what he gave us was the property that he owned, 2,500 acres of beautiful property in Southwest Michigan, and our conference center is there and our offices are there. And he gave us an endowment to work on. We're an operating foundation, so he formed us as a foundation that does things. We have to do things. We don't give away money. We provide services, and makes us very rare. But in 2000 or so, we started focusing in on what we call second stage entrepreneurs, and we coined that phrase and said, this is an important time frame, because second stagers, probably for the first time, that business owner is starting to create wealth for themselves. That first time, it's $1 million a year in revenue is that bottom entry point, up to $50 million a year in revenue. So right then they start to see they're probably kind of getting out of that survival mode of first stage. Then they also, what we think is also just as important, maybe even more important, is that this is where new jobs are created. Jobs are created from second stage companies, and we have evidence of it over the last 20 years. We can show you where these jobs are created. Almost every city, state, MSA, second stagers, when they grow their companies, they create jobs. So we work with a lot of organizations around the country that try to help their communities grow jobs, economic development of people, professionals, business assistance professionals. And we pretty much have the conversations, if your job is to help create jobs, we have an audience for you, and so we tell them about second stage. So we're exposing the people around the United States to this concept of what second stagers are and the challenges they have. Now, again, they're great. They do a lot of wonderful things, but they are also entering into a time frame that's very, very challenging. And it's in those challenges that can cause failure. And we don't want that to happen. So all of our programs are around how do you keep helping that company grow? What do you do to help them grow? So we've designed programs, that our partners can begin to utilize, and we love when that happens. Whether they can in turn work with the entrepreneur. From a relationship with WPO, Women President Organization started that way, still is that way, and so we've been helping them with their facilitation, who then in turn help those peer groups that are out there around the country. So that's a short story. Yeah. So
that's a great story. And you have been in the Edward Lowe Foundation, and the relationship with the WPO has just been so dynamic and so powerful and so productive from the ripple standpoint of how many entrepreneurs globally it really impacts. It's powerful. It's over 800 women business owners, all with that revenue between 2 million and above. And you really training their facilitators, and it's just such solid work. You have to feel so juiced from the work you do.
Oh yeah, I love it. I mean, we've trained, I think, every WPO chapter chair that is currently actually running a table. I think that I've met every single one of them and spent 2 or 3 days with them, and just did a training just a couple of weeks ago virtually. So we're still doing things virtually, but year in and year out, we're seeing 200 to 300 business owners who come out to the foundation and spend 3 days with us on a retreat program that we designed, and we utilize peer learning. It's not like going to a lecture. It's not like, sitting there, listening to the professor talking on stage. We want them to talk with each other. And so we have designed everything around doing that. So it's really, really fascinating work. To me, I love their optimism. I like the way they're wired. I think that we provide the right kind of setting for them to have conversations that they probably haven't had before. And it's a beautiful piece of property. It's great. It's just really great. And I like helping, business owners in particular, when I see them growing and really are, creating these great jobs. And I think that to me is our good cause, our mission at the foundation.
It's great work. And as you're talking about the beauty of the foundation, the food flashed in front of my mind. The food was delicious there.
So you met Chef Jose most likely. Yeah.
Yes, Chef Jose was amazing.
He is incredible. We got so lucky with Jose because he was actually a trailing spouse. His wife was a nurse, and she got transferred to Elkhart County. He was from Chicago. And she got transferred to Elkhart General Hospital, just south of the foundation. He came with her and just kind of wandered in one day and was looking for a job. We're like, hey. And so he's fantastic. And just, it's a little concerning sometimes for me because, obviously I want to do a great job myself. I want people to remember me, and their experience there, but I'm starting to see he gets more, accolades than I do. And I go, okay, that's no, it's great when he does.
Fantastic. You are just as fantastic.
We have to actually watch our calorie intake there for the whole year. But we can gain what we call our retreat 15,
right?
Which if you eat every single time there, you're going to start gaining weight because
I think that would be worth it. My goodness.
It's great. Especially the desserts.
Walk around the retreat area and walk it, right?
You got to walk a lot. You got to exercise. The desserts are amazing, so it's great. He's great. We love it.
So talk to me. Let's talk about this year.
Yeah.
Do you think that any entrepreneur, based on all of the work that you've done, could have ever been prepared fully for the year that we just went through for 2020?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think that I remember when this was happening. So we've all been through recessions, and unless you're really, really young, you maybe have it. I was thinking about my daughters are both in their 20s, and they really, for the first time professionally, are experiencing a recession. But most people, have been through a recession. We know how they come in and we know how they go out, and we know pretty much how to survive it. And we went through a really big one, in 2007, 2008.
Right. It feels like
Not that long,
doesn't it?
that long ago, but to think about a pandemic, I mean, that nobody I know has gone through one, and so that was kind of shocking. If you are able to think strategically though, which I'm a big advocate for, that entrepreneurs need to do that. Every business should think strategically. You should be looking at stuff, from the macro environment. And what it illustrated to me was that the external environment in business that everybody operates in can be both, beneficial and great opportunity, but can also be a threat. These threats can come at us, from the external environment. And this one is one of those. And there isn't a lot you can do about it. I mean, that's what happens with the macro environment, that it doesn't feel like it's in our control, and I think that's frustrated a lot of entrepreneurs when they felt like such great uncertainty with this, and I really can't control it. So like, what do I do? And that's been the big questions that they've had to deal with. So my answer is no, it isn't. And people actually went through a period of denial for a while as well. I know I did. My wife was using the term pandemic, a month before I even admitted that there was possibly a pandemic, and then I went, oh, maybe this is a pandemic, and I'd never seen it before. So no, I don't think they could have. Most that I know of were able to adjust, and to pivot. That was our favorite phrase in March, right? In April, many did. And then there was a recession that came along with it, right? And so that recession wasn't even, though. It wasn't like any other recession where it was across every industry. It seemed to hit certain industries really, really hard, others not so much. There were certain entrepreneurs out there, businesses that were actually growing through the pandemic. And so that was also a little weird, but we are still in, the public health crisis. We're still dealing with it. We've learned a lot. I think a lot of businesses I talk to have learned quite a bit about themselves and about their companies. But no, I don't think they could. But my favorite quote, there was a young man in Louisiana I talked to who said, when we were talking about the pandemic, he said, this is what I've been preparing for 10 years. As the leader, this is what I've been preparing for. Now, he didn't say I've been preparing for a pandemic, but he said, this kind of challenge, this is why I've been working on myself and my leadership and my team. And it's because of this reason. So if they were doing that, maybe they were okay.
That's true. That's true. And, you always are, as a leader, preparing for that rainy day, or that rainy day is coming. In fact, I had a conversation yesterday with an entrepreneur, and she was talking about, she's like, I just feel like her business is doing very well right now. And she's like, I feel like I just am on the cusp of that wave. And I know that it's going to crash. And I was like, well, how can we get you through that kind of psychology? And I want to ask you about this, of feeling like it's not going to be another downward cycle, that maybe you can just plateau and that wave can kind of crest as long as it can.
Right.
Yeah. So do you see that with entrepreneurs a lot, that they not only prepare themselves for that rainy day, but is there a way to get them around feeling okay with the high of things being good?
Well, it's an interesting thing when it comes out of behavioral economics, and it's always been around, is that for some reason, the research shows that when we're in a recessionary time, for some reason, people cannot recall when it was good. And then when it's also really good, we can't recall when it was bad. So our memories are sort of short term when it comes to those kind of things, And so everybody's going to be at different places at different times here, But that slow realization back in February, March, that this is going to be bad, and how do I prepare for that? We entered into crisis time. It's a crisis, the way I look at it. And I started talking a lot at that time about, even within our own team at the foundation, but also when I started working with, the business owners, we did a lot of outreach during that time frame, like a lot of people did. We developed a program that was really called Leading Through Challenging Times, and it was really focused on the psychology of things and how to actually manage a crisis. And I started with this idea that a crisis, by definition, is an intersection between danger and opportunity. All right. And so you just get your head wrapped around that, like, okay, this is what it can be. I can see an opportunity here, but I can also see danger. Now, it's still there. We're still in that crisis, but there are things you can do to sort of mitigate the psychological, pain that goes on when there is a crisis. So, again, a lot of people did okay. Some people really needed more help. Some business owners just ended up, it's going to really maybe be a bad ending for them, as far as this recession goes. So it's It's a crisis that we were in, and we have to lead through that.
That's right. Could you identify different categories of entrepreneurs as you saw all this unfolding based on their mindset?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mindset for sure. I mean, obviously, you can easily look at different industries, and that's the obvious one. Okay, so if you're in the hotel, entertainment industry, it was a tough year. Okay, if you're in say promotions and marketing or event planning, tough year. That was easy to see. Not every industry was affected the same way. Some were better. Mindset wise, I think there's a lot of emotional intelligence that goes into this too. Sure. I think if I boiled it down to, there are people who have what's referred to as a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. All right. Now, most entrepreneurs, I believe, have a growth mindset, and that means that they're curious and they are open-minded to change. Okay. Fixed mindset individuals, unfortunately, have a harder time when change comes along. They tend to feel like they're stuck, or they're limited, or they know everything they already need to know, and they can struggle if they're in that place. Entrepreneurs that, in my experience, are mostly growth mindset, so they're almost always looking for opportunities, and they're very curious. This was maybe the part that was shocking for them. Is like, there's this danger there, and they had to realize, oh yeah, it could be bad. But fundamentally, I think those two mindsets really matter when it comes to something that's changing on us. When the environment changes, can you adjust to it? If you are not able to adapt, you're going to struggle. These kind of things come along and can take a company down and take them out. I mean, and so yeah, if you're not able to make those adjustments, how you treat your market, how you treat your employees, you can't make that adjustment, you're going to struggle. So yeah, growth mindset, fixed mindset would be my answer at the beginning.
Absolutely. So what's your biggest takeaway this year?
Well, having ability to be flexible, have an ability to work, to maybe give to my network a different way. I'm a believer in, and actually I do a little bit of reading in the area of network theory, network science, and there's some parts of network science that I think are kind of interesting, and I tried to practice it this year.
Okay.
When there's this concept called strong ties and weak ties.
Okay.
And what it means is basically that we have really strong ties that we develop as human beings in our networks. People that really, really well. Okay. And so like your family and your close friends, and if it was in a company, your employees, but if you have a crisis, you have something that comes along that changes, let's say you're looking for some new business, or you're looking for a new job or something. Well, your strong ties are important support groups, right? But they tend to know the same people, right. And so if I was looking for something like a new opportunity, a business opportunity, I went to my brother. Well, he would know the same people I know, and so network's pretty tight. But if I reach out to somebody that I really don't know all that well, they're called weak ties. Okay, you and I would be considered a weak tie. Well, we met each other a couple of years ago. Now here we are talking the last couple of weeks, doing this. So getting to know you. I mean, okay, but we're in our network. Okay, so. You know people that I don't know. I know people that you don't know. And so this is why things like LinkedIn really works very well, because that's what that ends up being. Right? So when you want to increase your business, when you want to increase your opportunities, you build out your weak tie network. Now the trick is that you don't ask your weak tie network for anything. You don't ask them for things. You give them things. You do things for them. Right? And then the behavioral economics concept of reciprocity comes into play. That we tend to see that when we give of things, people tend to give us back, and that's not the intention, but that's what typically happens.
Right.
So what I did, was and I think even at the foundation we did this. I did this at the foundation and in my private practice. Was I reached out to a lot of people that I really hadn't spoke to in a while, or didn't know that very well, and I offered them certain services or conversations or even information that I thought would be helpful to them, without expecting anything back. Just did it and didn't expect anything. And I learned that was something that they found extremely valuable. They said, I'm going to remember this, that you did that, and when things get better, I'll do this. Okay, fine. Or they immediately started, working with me. And so working your weak tie network, building that out, became something that was a big learning for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and certainly coaching a lot of people through that same kind of idea,
Mm-hmm.
but also learning how to manage my own emotional responses to things.
Okay. Tell me
There's a lot of uncertainty out there,
What's your first trigger emotion? Like when you feel emotion, do you have a certain one that you go to, whether it's fear, doubt, curiosity?
Yeah, I think, what I've learned about myself, I've taken lots of personality assessments over the time, and you go through, a program that's what you get to do, and so, and I've learned that my superpower is rumination. That's my superpower, and so I can worry with the best of them,
Right.
and I have to mitigate that. So I have to find myself worrying about things, and it's one of the spectrums, of the big 5 personality characteristics. And I have to notice that when I'm doing it. I have to say, oh, wait, that's my thinking, and that's what I'm doing. I have to kind of put that aside, compartmentalize it, and then move on. Mm-hmm. So we have to understand ourselves, and we have to understand our triggers, because uncertainty right now, what happens to us biologically is that our brains don't like uncertainty. Okay, it registers as an error in our brain, and then we try to correct that error. Now, during that correction time frame, we're actually stimulating our limbic system is getting hyperactivated. Okay, because that's an unconscious worry or fear or whatever we call it, fear, mm-hmm. and it releases cortisol into our system or adrenaline. Okay, and it's that neurochemical that's the one that wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. With that deep uncertainty of fear or whatever we want to call it, it's anxiety and fear. And cortisol stays in your system for a long time. So I have to manage my cortisol, but I think all of us are trying to manage our cortisol right now. And it's pretty pervasive because the world has got such uncertainty on it. And humans don't like uncertainty. We like to know tomorrow's going to be like it was, a year ago, or right. Next year's going to be like it's going to be, before. So we prefer things to be the same.
Right.
If that makes sense. And it's
been different stages of the uncertainty, like right now. And I feel like everyone has kind of weathered this year and different months so differently. Like it's almost hit people, like you were saying, it hit your wife a little bit before it hit you, and then it kind of hit you and she was kind of through it, which is humanly, I think, how we get and pull each other through it.
Yep.
But the different stages, like right now, it's like, okay, in Baltimore, where I am, we're getting ready to go into winter. So that means less outdoor activities. And, I have young kids that are at school. So what does that look like? And those types of questions. And, will everything be open in January and February? Who knows? We don't know.
That's uncertainty.
That's uncertainty. And there's different stages of it. So what are some coping mechanisms that you advise for entrepreneurs? Are there any?
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, the first thing is to realize that you really cannot control the external environment. Okay, that's the first thing I tend to go to. All right, so it's on everything. It's not just the pandemic. I mean, it's like when there is a recession, you can't, no matter much as I want it to go away, I can't make a recession go away. As much as some cultural things may happen that I think are good or bad, I can't make it go away. It's the external environment is very powerful. And we as a species are adapting to the external environment. That's what I believe is what we're doing all the time. Mm-hmm. So knowing that I can't control, I can only adapt to it. I can only adjust to it is what I'm after. So coping mechanisms, there's one that I did beginning in March, and I was really advocating to a lot of my clients and people I talked to who maybe were struggling, was that we have to remember there are certain things that you can control and there's certain things you cannot control. Okay, and so that's when it gets blurry, when we start to think we can control things that we can't. Right, that's when it gets frustrating, and you get mad, angry, depressed, whatever can happen to the individuals when they're doing that. So there's an activity I call build a fence, and it's part of crisis management. And so it's recognizing, and actually what I did was I took a blank piece of paper and I made one list of here's all the things that I can control, and I wrote it all down. These are things, I had to put it on paper. So I could write it down. Here are the things I can control. And I wrote another piece of paper and I wrote down, here are the things I can't control. Okay. And it doesn't mean I'm going to ignore it. On that list I can't control was, I think it'd be great if there was a vaccine. Now this is back in March. Well, right. Yeah, it'd be great, but I'm not a biologist. I'm not going to be able to make a vaccine. So it doesn't do me any good to be thinking about that. I want the economy to return to where it was. Well, again, I can't do anything about that. But when I looked at my list of what I can control, on that list was things like I can control, my diet. I can control how much news I take in. Okay. I can control, how much exercise I get. These I can do. Right. And it's just build a fence. Don't spend any energy over that other one, because there's nothing you can do about it. You're just going to have to let that ride a little bit. Not that I say bury your head and not pay. No. You still got to pay attention to it. But I don't want to put a lot of effort in it. I think that I said, well, teams do the same thing. The teams that sat down and said, look, here are the things that we can do as a company right now in the short term are the ones that probably manage through it. Our time horizons had to get a lot shorter. We had to think, well, you're not talking a 5-year plan anymore. Maybe you're talking about, what are you doing next week? And I think good leaders did that with their teams. They said, here's what we're doing right now. Here's what we're doing this week. We can control this. Okay, do this and we'll be okay. Right. And it was the phrase that I loved hearing people said, I reserve the right to be a lot smarter 2 weeks from now.
Exactly.
When your kids go back in January, it'll be January. That's 2 months from now. We don't know. We don't know yet what it'll be like, We don't. But all I know is that we can have the most fun in this household with the Christmas holiday. And that's all that we can control, is just making them smile as much as we can right now and do the best that we can for them as parents, right? Well, yeah. And I've watched a lot of companies really begin to have these light bulbs go off about how they view virtual workers, and for the first time, like, oh my gosh, you can actually do this. Some are already doing it. Some were kind of forced into this now. Now they're realizing this was actually pretty good. Our employees are actually very productive when they're virtually working and they're not traveling in their car for an hour to work, and there's a lot that's going to come out of that. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think there'll be a lot of people who won't go back to working in an office, that'll be like, still can work from home, So.
I agree. And we went through this exercise actually in our WPO meeting last month. And one of the members had said, it was, what are you taking with you and what are you leaving behind was the question.
Yeah.
And, that one of the members had said that we really fast forwarded through 5 to 7 years worth of stuff that needed to happen and realizations that were really apparent to some people, like to some people who had already been on Zoom, to some people that had worked from home, to a lot of the people that had gone through that. And it got like the rest of the majority there. So it was a gift, that we had all of these different things that we have learned this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that's a big thing to think about. What am I learning during this time frame? That's a question I ask a lot of peer groups that I was facilitating or working with anybody. Well, what did you step back? What have you actually learned? What did you learn that you probably should have known before you got into this situation? Now you look back at it and go, oh, these things here. Even at the foundation, well, we've launched 3 new programs this year.
That's great. Tell me about them.
Yeah, we launched. We had been talking about doing virtual. We have a program much like WPO. We have the Perspectives Roundtable program, and it's done okay around the country. We decided that we could do this virtually, and so we had been playing around with the idea before. I had sampled a few people and we did a few of them, but we made it into a full-fledged program with our partners. We call it our COVID tables, and we asked them, can they put together roundtables for a 3-month period, and our partners in Louisiana, Florida, and Michigan all did. We saw I facilitated 300 people over a 3-month period doing virtual tables, and the results were really strong, and it told us you can actually do this. This is a new program that we can offer of how to facilitate it, how to do it. The business owners loved it because they were like across the whole state of Louisiana. They didn't have to drive to one place. They were just working from home, working in their office and jumping on a call. That was a big one. Then we obviously we took our programs, our leadership programs virtually, which these were 3-day retreat programs. And we said, well, can we take this virtually? And the answer was yeah. So we've run programs that were shorter in duration, but all done virtually. And they've been well attended. We probably saw more people through our virtual retreats than we have in our regular retreats this year. So, that was kind of exciting. We launched our mentoring program, a mentorship program this year, which was really fascinating. We've been wanting to do this for some period of time, but finally with the technology, it actually enabled us to do it. So we match up experienced entrepreneurs with sort of slightly less experienced entrepreneurs and created a mentoring program. So we trained the mentor how to do that, and the mentee as well. And those have launched in 3 different states as well. So
phenomenal.
yeah, we adjusted, and now we learned, well, and I think that for a while there was a struggle between people thinking that, well, we're not going to do things on the property anymore. I was like, no, that's not it at all. We'll go back to the property as soon as we can when it's safe. But we're not going to give up the virtual things though either. When we do that, we're going to do both. We have new product lines.
Well, and you were able to impact more people.
Okay.
And that's really what it's about. When you can reach more people and serve more people and help more people, the mentoring program sounds phenomenal. And, I already know the power of the groups that you run just because they're so amazing.
Yeah. So I think every company that is surviving and thriving and changing and pivoting, they're learning a lot about themselves and about their people. One thing I kept hearing people say was, boy, my A players, they're showing up. I know who they are now. I know who my A players are. And then conversely, I know who my C players are.
Right. Right. And now you are seeing actually people take some action on that.
Yep.
Make decisions, some hard decisions, or the decisions are so apparent that they're ready for this.
Yeah, that's right.
So what kind of books are you reading these days?
Oh gosh.
Or listening to, or do you listen or do you read?
I mostly read. I read articles and I read books. I'm reading Gary Hamel's book, his new one called Humanocracy.
Okay.
I've been a Gary Hamel fan for years, and this book is about the dangers of becoming too bureaucratic. And that bureaucracy is a sign of age of a company, of a little too maturity, right? And he talks about how do you build in that startup culture? How do you don't forget the startup culture that you might have had when you started your company? I think that's really fascinating. To kind of think about, oh yeah, there's things in our DNA that we have as second stage companies that they're putting systems in place. They're starting to kind of lock things down. Well, don't let that go too far, without losing your entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely.
And so that's what he's comparing against. That's kind of fascinating.
It's very fascinating. In fact, you just made me recall a quote that someone said the other day, and they said, Annette, I feel like I'm a 20-year-old startup again because they everything that they had just witnessed through the pandemic. Great, we were a 20-year-old company, and that all worked then, but now it feels like a startup, right?
A lot smarter. We're kind of starting over again. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's just it's a good reminder,
It really is.
You don't want to forget that. I mean, bureaucracy can creep into every company, and it can really begin to trap you, over a period of time. You're not very flexible. And if we look at anything, like I said earlier, this idea of being flexible and adaptable really was critical this year, and if you're too bureaucratic, you're not going to adjust very easily. It's going to work against you. I'm also reading a book called Leadership as Language. And it's about, again, the guy's name is Marquette, I think. It's about how to ask really good questions from a leadership perspective. That's been pretty fascinating. He's got a list of the 7 deadly sins of questions, 7 deadly sins of inquiry. It's like, oh, okay, how to ask the wrong questions.
Yeah, that sounds like something I need to pick up. My goodness. I dusted off a couple books. I dusted off the Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last, and I think you're a Susan Scott fan.
I am.
I dusted off Fierce Leadership.
Okay.
That's her second book after Fierce Conversations.
Okay.
I just I knew that there was a couple books that I just wanted to go back to and kind of just check in on. So that's good. But I'll have to check out that second one you mentioned. I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about 2021? How are you feeling going into the year?
A degree of optimism, but realism, that I don't want to get too impatient,
okay.
And let the guard down a little bit, as I think that could be, health-wise, it's not safe at this point still for us. And I maybe, again, I'm a little bit older, age group. And so I have to be somewhat careful just personally, but I think business-wise, I think it's going to be okay. I think I've been saying all along that, well, what we need to have is the vaccine, and that should help us. And I think that we'll see the results of that during Q1, where that we're starting to see hopefully a turn down of the terrible numbers track that we're on. Right. Probably by the time we get to summer, hopefully most Americans have been vaccinated. And most people around the world, I should say, have been vaccinating. It should begin to slow that up. I mean, we're already thinking that probably back to doing on-ground retreats in the summer at the foundation. That would have been about a year and a half, which would have been about the time that we sort of projected it. So unless there's some catastrophic thing, with the vaccination that, oh, hey, it wasn't really healthy. I think that should be, decent. I think we'll see a bounce, at that point. So economically, I'm not an economist, but I play one on TV. I just think that it just seems natural that after we get through something like this, it'll jump back up. It seems natural that once there is a shift in a administration at the federal level, typically kind of goes hand in hand. So yeah, I think I'm cautiously optimistic at this point that I'm hearing positive things from the business owners. I mean, I try to gauge what they're talking about. What are they thinking about? And I'm hearing that that's the same kind of thing from many of them. Like, let's get the vaccine going, and then we probably will see a bounce. But right now, it's difficult for a lot of leaders right now. I work with a lot of nonprofits as well. Really, very hard. Very, very difficult right now. Just getting through their people and keeping people safe and keeping their clients safe and that kind of thing. So we're still kind of in that crisis mode still, but hopefully soon out of it.
Absolutely. Well, and it's that endurance. It's that endurance of, okay, I had my armor on. I weathered that storm, March and April hit. And I think, I don't know, I feel this personally and with a lot of my clients, feel like we hustled harder and differently than we really ever had ever.
Yep.
And now it's like, okay, you're still flexing that muscle. And now, you realize that there's another muscle underneath that needs to get stronger and stay stronger to support that other muscle, right? It's that endurance to keep on keeping on and wake up and find it and continue to feel invigorated. So what keeps you going?
Yeah, I think I was going to add to that comment that there's a tendency of people who want to have things go back to normal too quickly. And I think we'd be careful with that because we all want that, but we don't want to, can't make it happen too fast. Yeah. It's going to have to take its time. What keeps me going? Was that your question? I guess just, new opportunities, new potential business. I like meeting new people. I'm looking forward to getting back into, being in a room with people, crowds. I'm a kind of a natural extrovert. So I like groups of people. And I really have missed that, and I think we've done pretty good with technology, but I'm looking forward to, facilitating back in a room full of people where I can actually see them and we can watch body language and we can, communicate in a whole different way. I'm looking forward to that. What keeps me going is obviously hopefully keeping everybody I know, safe and healthy too. So,
that's great. That's great. So what's on the horizon for you, Dino? Any big visions, big dreams on the realm for you?
Well, I don't know. I think I probably have got, I can see my time at the foundation in the next 10 years probably beginning to wind down a little bit. So we're talking a succession plan at this point right now, how that's going to transition. What is my role going to be even after I decide, at some point that after maybe 30 years I could be thinking about, the big R word, which I don't like to think about it all too much anyway, but my management team tends to want me to think about it. Yeah, I think that could be something I'm just considering. What's my next, phase? I'm interested in creating new modules, new learning things. That's what I'd really like doing. So I've got some things I'm kind of working on right now around conflict management. And in other parts of facilitation. I do a lot of my practice right now is on working with consultants and helping them be better consultants. And I've been doing that work with a lot of EOS implementers and other people that are out there trying to help business owners. So I see that being a big part of my practice going forward, and that growing, even as I tend to slow off a little bit at the foundation, in about 10 years, it's my projection. But doing more of that, I like the work I get to do. It's great. It's great work. It's definitely something I want my brain in, and it's not like I'm roofing houses kind of thing. I'm able to do it hopefully a long time. So. I want to get back to being with people again, but I like writing. I like creating new programs and trying them out. That's what keeps me going.
Well, you are so good at it too. You are such a wealth of knowledge. I feel like it's like you're like this encyclopedia for entrepreneurship and for business wisdom. And it's just, I always have such a great conversation with you. You are always very kind and curious and optimistic, and I really admire that about you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I mean, yeah, it's I'm extremely fortunate to be able to do the work I get to do. And I remind myself that all the time, that it's a privilege and an honor to be able to work with these business owners, and that they allow us in, they allow us to talk, and there's many of them are curious and are open, and that matches up, with me. And so it seems easy to me, and so.
Yeah. You're so good at it. You're so good at it. So how can the audience help you? How can we reach you? How can any asks for the audience or the universe?
Well, certainly if they want to, follow me on LinkedIn, that's a great place to be. I do the Twitter thing, but LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of my time. So certainly you can join me there. If they want to reach out and to go more one-to-one, if they're a consultant out there, they want to learn more about my facilitation training program. It's called the Exceptional Facilitator, and I've got several clients in that program right now. Certainly you can reach me in my email. That'd be fine. Anybody who is a second stager, wants to know more about the Edward Lowe Foundation, certainly happy to point them in the right direction there. Or if they want to work directly with me on things like strategy or personnel challenges they might be having, or even just for them. I like working with the CEO. I like working with the second stage entrepreneur, and as she's growing her business, anything that she needs from almost like a helpful mentoring standpoint. That's what I like doing, and they certainly reach out to me, and I'll be happy to follow back up. So
that's great. That's great. And you'll have to send me all that stuff so I can drop it in the show notes.
I will.
Reach it all. So good. So let's end on a note. I always like to ask people if they have a personal mantra or a personal motto that they repeat sometimes to kind of, snap them out of their own personal head trash or whatever. Do you have anything that you kind of repeat to yourself that are words of wisdom?
Boy, that's a great question. You put me right on the spot here.
I know,
my mind here. Thanks, Annette. I'll throw this one at you. And I'm a big music fan. Okay, I've worked in the music industry for a long time, and
we didn't get to talk about that.
Yeah, it's just a big part of how I facilitate. But I'm reminded of a John Lennon quote.
Okay.
That he said, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans."
Yes. What song is that from? It's from a slower song. Is it from Beautiful Boy? It's from Beautiful Boy.
It might be Beautiful Boy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, it just says so much.
Song. Yeah. When my boys are really tired in the car, I put that song on and they just drift off to sleep. You are so right.
Yeah. That one still stops me in my tracks.
It's so
Yeah, I like it. So we're always thinking about, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? You don't want to forget what you're doing right now. What are you doing right now? What's happening today? And then, because that's life.
It's so true. It's so true. And I'm so happy that I had this gift of time to virtually be with you in completely different locations. And, you really lifted my soul today and brightened my heart. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Well, thanks for thinking of me, and I appreciate it. And hopefully we can, keep talking, and anybody wants to talk more, let me know.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon, Dino. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ned.
Wow. What an episode. Did you learn something new? I hope so. I am so happy you were able to be here with us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a review and I will be sure to read it and respond to you. Also, if you'd like to email me, my email address is yourock@iEvolveConsulting.com. Hit subscribe, and every Tuesday you'll get notification when the next episode drops. We really have some amazing interviews and tips in the future. Anything you need, I'm here for you. I want you to keep your momentum. I want to help you stay accountable. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to evolve. So please let me know what you need, and I'd love to hear from you. Take care until next time.